at this is a photograph of baobab trees at Kongo Mosque beach, and this is on the south coast, south of Mombasa. There's an estuary, a very old mosque, and these extraordinarily old baobab trees. And then I read in the Atlantic that trees that have lived for millennia are suddenly dying. Around 1500 years ago, shortly after the collapse of the Roman Empire, a baobab tree started growing in what is now Namibia. The San people would eventually name the tree Homasi, and others would call it Grootboom, after the Afrikaans word for big tree. As new empires rose and fell, Homasi continued growing as humans invented paper money, printing presses, cars, computers. Homasi sprouted new twigs, branches, and even stems, becoming a 5-trunked behemoth with a height of 32 meters and a girth to match. And then in 2004 it collapsed. The tree's demise was sudden and unexpected. In March, at the end of the rainy season, Homasi was in full bloom, but by late June its health had suddenly deteriorated. One by one its stems broke off from the gargantuan trunk and toppled. The last of them fell on New Year's Day 2005, ending 15 centuries of life. Common throughout Sub-Saharan Africa, the African baobab is one of the biggest flowering plants in the world and reputedly one of the longest lived. It's also known as the upside-down tree because its bare branches look like roots, or as the monkey bread tree because of its nutritious and edible fruit. It's exceptionally long-lived, but recently several of the oldest baobabs have been dying. Homasi, for example, was part of a grove of 7 baobabs, 6 of which perished within a 2-year period. This isn't an isolated event. Of the 13 oldest known baobabs in the world, 4 have completely died in the last dozen years, and another 5 are on their way, having lost their oldest stems. These large and monumental trees, which can live for 2,000 years or more, were dying one after the other. It's sad that in our short lives, we are able to live through such an experience. The oldest tree was Patroot's team studied, the Panke baobab from Zimbabwe, was more than 2,500 years old when it died in 2011. 2 other trees, Dorland's Boom in Namibia and Glencoe in South Africa, also more than 2,000 years old. Their largest and oldest stems have collapsed, but parts of them are still alive. No one can say baobabs have died off in this way in centuries past. These trees decay very quickly and leave few traces behind. But when around 70% of your 1,500 to 2,000-year-old trees died within 12 years, it certainly is not normal. It is difficult to come up with a culprit other than climate change. This is another photograph of baobabs on that beach I was describing, a Kongo beach in south of Mombasa. Baobab is the common name of a genus of trees, the Adansonia. 9 species, 6 species live in the drier parts of Madagascar, 2 in mainland Africa, 1 in Australia, and 3 in India. It's the national tree of Madagascar. One of the largest and most important trees in all of where they grow, able to provide shelter in the wood. The leaves of the tree are used for making soup, and it has some medicinal purposes in some regions of Africa. Here's another photograph. This is from Agence France Presse. And then again, the photograph from Congo Mosque Beach and baobabs. And what I said to Hannah, who I dropped early in the morning to her pickup point, and I said to her, Hannah, these trees, and she knows baobab trees because we're in Africa and we've seen them often. And I said, do you know how old they are? And she said, no. And I said, the oldest was 2,500 years old. And then I said to her, do you know how old Jesus Christ is? And then we discussed BC, obviously. And then I said, do you know how old the oldest human remains are? that were discovered in Lake Turkana by Leakey. I was up there in Turkana County, not at the lake, though I'm going to go and have a look next time. As you know, I think it's over 1,000,000 years. And then I asked her how long the universe was, and then we sort of considered how short mankind has been on this planet. But it's very sad to do that.